Have you ever had manipulative people in your life? There are lots of signs that could indicate that it's you or it's someone else in your life. Pastor Joe talked about this in a sermon as part of the series, Dealing with Difficult People, and we're going to hear a lot about that. The sermon is linked in the description. If you didn't watch it yet, we highly recommend checking in with that and then coming back to this podcast so we can get deep with it.
Hi, my name's Mike.
And I'm Meg, and you're listening to or watching the Open-Ended podcast where we go deeper than the Sunday sermon.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us again another week, and really excited to talk about this topic. Just a quick recap on the message. So Pastor Joe gave us some ideas on how to look out for if somebody is trying to manipulate you. And then also he gave us a lot of really good ideas, scripturally based ideas, on how to approach a manipulative person. So,
and also how to say manipulative.
We did not learn that. We still haven't. So this is going to be a very interesting episode that you're going to be seeing.
People that take advantage of you and trick you.
Yes.
Just use those words.
Mm-hmm.
All right. With us today is Samson himself. Welcome to the podcast, Joe. Yeah. Exactly.
And why are we calling you Samson, Joe?
I don't know.
Because in your sermon, Pastor Joe Parks in the sermon was introducing Samson into what he was talking about, and he described him, and he said, you know, he was burly and strong and smart and strong, you know, kind of like me.
Kind of like me.
Without the hair.
And everybody laughed.
I used to have a mullet back in the day.
I
heck yeah, man. Late 80s, I would rock that hard.
Jeez. So I don't know if you know it, but you gave some examples of manipulation in the Bible, and one of them was Jacob and Esau. It's a pretty known story. But did you know that we based this podcast off of Jacob wrestling with God or wrestling with the man? That was how we started the podcast. And what
nice.
It was a big topic when we were trying to figure out what to name it. We were like, well,
Really?
this is where the concept is coming from
God kept leading us back to Jacob and wrestling with the man, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Yep. But then you also talked about women being manipulative to King Herod and cutting off one of my favorite characters in the Bible, John the Baptist, cutting off his head.
That was a pretty crazy story.
Yeah. And then Samson was manipulated by Delilah.
Don't you love me? Won't you tell me?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, doesn't matter. Male or female, that happens all the time, man. People doing that.
Yeah, it does. So then you also give us some ideas on how to, what manipulation looks like. And then you talked about threats being one of the weapons that people use for manipulation. You run through some ideas on that. I have definitely experienced that in my life. And to be honest with you, I have been a manipulative person in a lot of my relationships before I grew up and became an adult at 37 years old. But how about you? Have you experienced that stuff that Joe was talking about in the message?
For sure. I've been both as well. I really liked the part where you kind of distinguish that it's not, some people might not even know that they're doing it. Most people probably don't actually mean to be. They don't realize that they're operating in a really unhealthy, manipulative way. And they might not know it either because they grew up in a household that had a lot of that, or that they didn't. And so it's blindsiding to them because they've never experienced that before. And yeah, I think I've been in relationships like that, and then been that person in relationships after experiencing that and not realize that I was causing problems.
I think that it ends up being just how you do life, right? Like we're selfish people. And so we want to get what we want. We want to get our way. And so often you're not even working that stuff out in your brain. You're just trying to figure out, how can I get Mike to do what I want to do?
Right.
Yeah.
And so you'll go after the guilt or we haven't even talked about that, the threats, right? Like, if you don't, then I'm out. Like, if you won't do the way that I want to do it, then I'm not going to do this with you. And it's just these threats that happen all the time. And it's in just like everyday life. And people don't even think about it because I just want you to do what I want to do.
Right.
And we end up hurting a lot of people in the process.
So I have a scenario for you.
Yeah.
I'm interested in getting both your takes on this. So Jennifer and I never have done this in 10 years. I keep saying 13 years. I don't know where 13 years comes from, but we've been married for 10 years now. We have never done this, and I constantly did it in my previous relationships. What do you think is different with the dynamic with Jennifer and I that caused me not to want to withhold sex or withhold what you name it? What do you think was different this time? Do you think it's because we're enveloped in church, God, working on ourselves?
I don't know. We need a lot more of the background to know what's different now than before. But
Yeah.
my guess is both of you are mature Christ followers. So you have him at the center, and you know that you want to treat others as you treat yourself, right? The Jesus rule, which is the golden rule. And so you do your best to live by that. And,
So that's what I was talking up to, is maturity.
Yeah.
And I think maturity can also, a lot of times, fortunately, unfortunately, come from poor previous experience. So if you had a past marriage that didn't go very well and you knew what was wrong, you can then change it and go, I don't want that in this marriage, and I'm not going to let it happen. Or, hey, this really didn't work. And so you're able to draw a boundary that you couldn't have seen in previous ones. I think for a lot of people who have that experience, good or bad, to bring to their next one, it's unfortunate because you had to go through something hard and bad, maybe with a bad ending, but then it's good because you can just draw the line.
Yeah.
And from what I know about you, I know you are someone who is just like, I don't want to do that again. And I'm going to just make sure that it doesn't, And that's a mature thing to say and do, is not again.
I think you hit it on the head. Was one, that we're more mature. We both had bad relationships. In my previous relationship, I wasn't the one making the threats like this, but they were being made against me. But I was also behaving pretty badly in the marriage. So I think a lot of it is I've grown up and I'm not making the same mistakes that I made in my previous marriage in this marriage, which in turn is not causing Jen to think about even making a threat like that. So it's an interesting take on that.
I think the threat aspect is a deal, but for me, and I don't know, you guys tell me how you feel about this.
I will.
In the comments, you guys can leave it in on the comments and tell us. But seems to me like people move in the manipulation aspect, not so much in the threats, although they do exist, but more of the guilt aspect.
Totally.
Okay.
The guilt part of it, of being like, why wouldn't you do this? I thought you said you were my friend. If you were my friend, then you would do this with me.
So a lot of our young viewers are probably going to be the ones experiencing this guilt one that you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, it seems to me like it's way more common of examples of people trying to guilt you into something versus threat, the threat aspect of it. I feel like it's more of I can't believe you wouldn't do this.
Yeah.
And that kind of manipulating of your emotions.
Yeah.
Versus the threat of it, sometimes people will fight back. They'll be like, they'll come back at you. Whereas the guilt part, they're really trying to gaslight and really get them to.
Right. And guilt, we have to remember that guilt does not come from the Lord. And have to see the flip side of it, that this isn't just like a moral compass issue. Like, it's not only just the wrong thing to do to someone because it makes them feel bad. It's the wrong thing to do because it is not from the Lord. You even said it in your sermon. You quoted Matthew 16, and Jesus calls a manipulator Satan. He calls him Satan. So that tells us that this is the opposite of a godly thing to do, is to even try to get somebody to do something using these routes of guilt or threats or anything like that. And I think it's also kind of related to the tempting, like someone trying to tempt someone. That's manipulation too. And we see that from Satan to Jesus too, when he's, you can have my whole kingdom. Why don't you? Right. And that same thing, we see that from Satan. We don't see that from the Lord.
Sure.
And so we have to take this more seriously than it's just morally wrong to manipulate someone. It's actually demonic. Like, scripturally, this is
and sinful.
This is totally. Yeah. This is
Get
just
away
not
from me,
right.
Satan.
Yeah. Get behind me.
Yeah, that's what
Satan.
we said. So in that aspects of how do we break the power of
Mhm.
manipulation in our lives, right? That was one of the aspects that we said we got to do is you have to tell people this is not going to work for you,
Mhm.
and then just call them Satan.
So Joe's kind of touching on it, but we're moving on to, so how do we break the power of manipulation? One of the ways, like Joe was talking about, was just to get away from that person, but then recognize when somebody's trying to control you. Like you were talking about Peter isolating Jesus, taking him off to the side.
Mhm.
No, that's really key right there that I see a lot with manipulation is, are they afraid to say what they're going to say to you in public? Are they taking you off to the side and saying it to you?
But what do you guys think are some other signs of that? Because that's really just one thing, right? Like we just tackled one thing in that talk that we did on it was, and that's what we saw in the scripture. But what do you guys think are some other ways that people will, I don't know. In this case, it was isolation, but what do you see some other ways? How can you recognize that somebody is trying to control you?
Yeah, there's a million. One way that you could say is, so like somebody is giving you a lot of attention, texting you all the time, DMing you, talking to you, and then when you guys are in public or something like that together, they're not so much interested in being your friend. Like they'll acknowledge you, but it's nothing like what they're doing or saying at night. Or, in private messages and
That's
stuff
a really
like that.
good point. Sometimes it can come off super positive and it has all the feel good stuff, but it's not real. And discernment is the only way to see
that trickery
past
thing,
that.
right?
Yeah.
Where they're just trying to,
Yeah.
They
just try to butter you up. That's also manipulation.
Good. That's a good example.
That is a really good
I've
one.
experienced that.
So
it hurts too, man.
Yeah.
All forms of manipulation hurt.
Totally.
They do. So running with that though, that theme, we've both been in corporate America. So sometimes the way that I get stuff done is I will compliment somebody when I have to give them a hard task to do. So it's a compliment sandwich, and it makes it, and it's actually an actual tactic that's corporate to do. So am I manipulating people? I am manipulating people in my job. So I shouldn't do that.
So what then? I guess the next question is, what's your motive?
Yeah, I need to get them to do something.
And is it true? Like,
It
is what you're telling them true?
For sure.
Because I think that there could be a difference between like manipulating them to get what you want. Would you have told them that compliment anyway if you didn't want something from them?
Yeah, I pride myself on that. I pride myself that I haven't told a single lie in 10 years. Oh. And I also pride myself that I often give people compliments because I know that they're not giving out enough. So I love to do that. But I need to get work done. So I like to soften some of the blows with, "Hey, how's your day going? Oh man, that was a wonderful weekend, wasn't it?" Or something like that. Yeah. And then, oh, by the way, blah, blah, blah just happened. I need you to correct it, please.
Oh, by the way.
Whatever. All right. I like that. I like the first.
I think that's such a great point, though.
It
is how do we avoid it? Because you said already, Meg, that people don't even know that they're doing it so often. And so this, is talking about how to break the power of manipulation. How do we break it? You got to recognize somebody. How do you recognize if you're doing it? Right. And you just gave us a great example, Mike, of that.
Totally.
There's people out there that are they don't even recognize themselves doing these things. What's your motivation and is it truthful? Those are some great deeper diving points.
That was exactly my last point was you have to recognize that it's you, that it could be you if you're doing it. So another instance is Jen likes to think that she will guide me to her ideas and make it think that it's my ideas.
The neck that turns the head?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Jen, I have this new idea. Oh, yeah, right, Mike. That's a great idea. I'm glad you thought about that. So it's possible for us to do it in our marriages too. Hey, honey, that new iPad, man, it would really increase our productivity of our business, if we bought it. I know I'm going to be the only one using it, and TikTok's going to be on it, and Facebook and everything else. But I'm sure eBay will be on there too, right?
Can I touch that bear?
Dog. Can I touch that dog? Can I touch that dog? Can I pet
Is
that
that
dog?
what you mean to quote?
Is there a bear one too? You have to send it to me.
Really lost.
Joe and I are on a streak of sending each other pretty good videos lately.
But it's not gonna pet that dog.
Can I pet that dog?
Can I pet that dog? You all know what I'm talking about, right? What Joe's talking about. All right. Another point that you brought up was, I got loud again. Sorry for your ears. Meg corrected me that I get you loud. When you can't say no to a certain person, this ties back to my example of somebody showing you a lot of attention and affection in your DMs and texting you, but doesn't show you the affection in public, in real life, IRL. So
So cool. Whoa.
Can I touch that bear? Meg is like, what is going on
Get me out
with
of
these
here.
two old men?
BRB. Me and my ankle socks will just stay right here. Yeah. So when you can't say no to a certain person, feel an obligation. When you know it's not good for you, but you still do it. That's a pretty common one.
Mm-hmm.
Breaks your values.
Yeah,
You know?
I think that one's a little easier to see. Like I know I'm breaking my values, but I think.
But you can do it anyway. That's the manipulation
Yeah.
aspect.
I have done that for people.
Because that's what we were talking about earlier, is how it's the whole truth and motivation, right? So what's really going on here?
Right.
If I know that Meg values something and I'm trying to manipulate her away from that value to do what I want to do, I mean, and
oh yeah,
she can even see that, like you could see that coming. But in like this case, oh well, he's the boss and all these things, and I gotta make sure. But if I were to do that and to cause her to break a value, then we're getting back to that sin, abuse, all of these things happen. And it's more common than we ever even think about it, of dealing with difficult people as that word. What did you say?
Manipulative.
Manipulative.
Mm-hmm.
Happening all the time in our life. And it's actually heartbreaking when you sit down and think about it. I mean, I've got like a close to home thing that's happening, like with the threats and all that stuff, like taking the bank accounts and all of those things. It's all of that stuff is just manipulating to you do what I want. And
it absolutely binds you to it's enslavement. Manipulation is enslaving somebody to something. Of course not. Yeah, you know what I mean by that. It's an emotional enslavement. It can even really, really affect your spiritual life. And that is why people get trapped in abusive relationships for so long. And a lot of people don't, when they hear, about a woman who's in an abusive relationship and they ask, well, why didn't you just leave him? Like, why didn't you just leave? All you had to do was walk out the door and never return. All you had to do was cut him off. And it's not that simple.
So many emotions.
Yeah, you're enslaved to the relationship or to the person in some way that it's not as easy as just, you talked in your sermon about then what's the thing that you need to do once you realize all this is redefine the relationship. Well, how I could imagine someone who's maybe been through something like that listening to this and going, it's not that simple. So maybe we can talk about like, what do we say to them? What do we say to someone who's just like, it's more than that. I'm trapped and I can't leave. All of these other things would happen because this person has basically set up traps for, if you leave me, here's the consequence. If you do this, then this is what's going to happen. And it's detrimental and it affects all these people. And then it's like your fault if you leave or if you do something.
And how could you do that? And then that's where the guilt aspect comes in even. And it just continues. Even if you try to escape and to leave that, they still do it through the guilt side of things.
Yeah. You could try. And then when you tried to get out of it, you get in way more trouble than you would if you just stayed complacent.
Tried to get through it.
You're trapped.
Just just stinking through life, but just
Right.
it's better than dealing with the alternative.
Right.
And that's how you know you're stuck in
Absolutely stuck.
that kind of relationship.
Yeah, you guys bring up a lot of good points, and I know that a lot of people deal with the extreme that you're talking about, abusive relationships and stuck in abusive relationships. And then we're also talking about marriages that are doing it, and then you're also talking about bosses and employees that are doing it. But I think Joe gave great examples, or the Bible gave great examples, and just spoke it through Joe. Is that you can do the training, you can educate those people that they are, if they don't know, if it's not blatant that they're being manipulative, and point it out to them, help them see it. Especially if you're in a marriage and you guys just honestly don't see it in each other, or the other person doesn't see it, then I would hope that Jennifer would correct me in something like that when I'm doing that. In some of the extremes that Meg was talking about, though, I think where Joe said you need to redefine that relationship, that's where you just need to, and I know it's scary because I've done it, I've absolutely had to do this, is say it's done. I'm done with you. I can't do this anymore. And you just got to break yourself away from it and then just starting that new life. And
The hard part to that, though, I think what Meg was bringing up is like in the situation that I have that's close to me is there was an option. And a lot of times for people, there's not an option.
Mhm.
Like you could say that, but you are dependent on this other person for finances and shelter and food and all these things. And to just say that I'm done and to go out the door, well, there might not be a place to go. You might not have a car. Like, where are you going?
That, or there's a huge looming threat of some sort that the person is just not willing to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's where we need the help, the support. That's where, even in our communities and stuff, we have, great organizations and stuff that are set up that can help with that. And it's just,
well, and that's what we are here at the church too, is we're a support system for people that don't feel like that they have a place to go. Like
there is that. There is the church as an option, but for some people, they don't even have the church connection. Like they don't even have a church connection. Yeah. So, but there are options out there. There are things for people that there's the church, but there are health organizations. There are so many people even set up with our city, county that can help you through this in any situation that is that can be threatening and dangerous even, and you have to figure it out and find a way out. There are answers, and we can find them out there. They are out there. It's just that my prayer is that you have the courage to recognize that it's all through scripture that we see it, that you have the courage to recognize this is not the right and healthy situation for me to be in, and I have to make that move. And I pray the blessing of the Holy Spirit upon that next step.
Yeah, that's where I was going with what you were talking about, is redefining the relationship. All right, having the courage to, if you're at this point, you already know that something's not right. This is an unhealthy relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You're having these thoughts. So, did I not say that right? Was that okay? What triggered you? What caused? Are you okay? I'm sorry if I said something wrong.
Nobody said.
She's feeling it. It's in her feels.
Yeah, and I know that this is, so I'm seeing it from my side, of the male side, and I'm sure that you are seeing it from the female side. So sorry.
Okay. Nobody said anything wrong. It just hits home.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, actually, stuff that I thought I had healed from, people I thought I had forgiven. It like came into my heart that I haven't. This sermon, actually. I just went home and realized that I haven't forgiven an abusive ex-boyfriend. Sorry.
I'm going to say sorry. We're healing right now.
Mm-hmm. My guess is that there are many that resonate.
Yeah.
With that trauma that you faced and the hurt and the pain that goes with it.
Mm-hmm.
But we're excited about the other side of this and healing and the Spirit's move because He has blessed you with an incredible man.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
your life in Him, in Christ.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And what you had said earlier too about just those, it's the growth. It's all the things that you've learned from those past situations. And when you are able to grow through that, you're able to recognize, right? Way quicker than ever about, oh, this person's trying to control this or that.
Yeah.
And go through just like what you talked about, you and Jen both having those bad experiences, previous relationships, and being able to see that and not want to see that happen again.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think these are great examples of healing on the other side for those people that are maybe tuned into this to see, like, I deal with, manipulation and how do I deal with it, to see that there's victory. There is victory out there.
Yeah, but when you're in the middle of it though, or when you're in it, man, it sure doesn't feel like that there's another side to come out of.
That's why we're here, and that's our prayer for you to be able to find that, the courage and the boldness to be able to step forward in it. And I speak that in Jesus' name for you in your life, for healing to come to your way, just like we have experienced here on the podcast.
And you know what really freaks me out even more is that this is probably the rest of us mute our phones when we come to the podcast.
Muted. That's why it's on vibrate.
Right. Like do not disturb.
Do not disturb.
I do have it on do not disturb, but I have
put her on
and my favorites.
Oh, that will come through anyway.
And my favorites come through.
My favorites still don't come through because if I'm napping, I don't want you to interrupt me.
No, it might be important.
Put her on a video call. Tell her. Video her right now. FaceTime. God, such a Gen X. Give me on one of those video conference call things. What are they called?
TiVo.
Off of the TiVo.
Skype is now the old thing. That's how advanced we are, is that Skype is old now. Crazy.
So what scares me even more is that I think that is one of that it's the more prevalent forms of abuse because there's no bruises, there's no scars, there's no evidence other than, and if nobody sees you, if you're doing it in secret, nobody's seeing it and they don't know about it.
Right.
You got to take somebody else's word for it. That's what I love about that. When you have close friends, though, they know your character and they know if you're telling, if you say, hey, this dude's not treating me right, or this woman's not treating me right, then they're like, oh man, I know you and I know you wouldn't just say that. So
that's why isolation is such a big tactic is you either get manipulated into isolating yourself from people, thinking that they don't deserve your attention. Right? Like someone might convince you that that person's actually out to get you. You should distance yourself from them. And then they're the only person that you trust for things. And then you put all your emotional reliance on them and completely depend on them. Or they do the distancing for you so that, you're their only input and influence.
Right.
And only thing to bounce off of.
Right.
And can't understate the importance of community. That is why churches exist and that's why church, like small groups and community, things like that exist, is we need to be together.
I'm going to go ahead and close on that unless you guys had follow-up comments, but I'm definitely going to link some phone numbers down below in the description of local contacts if you're experiencing abuse right now, an abusive relationship. There is help. There is anonymous help, or would you call it yeah, it's anonymous help if you call, but they'll be able to help you get out of those situations. And then if you are part of a church group, let the church know. Let the church know something's going on that just isn't right. But we'll link some of those support numbers and contacts in the bottom.
I love it. That's awesome.
Well, Pastor Joe, thanks for showing us manipulative people. Manipulative people.
Okay.
Manila is a place, so you guys think Manila people.
Vanilla people. Thanks everyone for joining us. As always, if you have questions, please send us questions. The open-ended at Eureka Faith Center, or you can DM us on Instagram, or just drop them in the comments down below. We have been getting some really unique comments on YouTube. I don't know exactly how to respond to them.
Yeah. Where's the real people at? Can I not get some bots? Can I get rid of the bots out there and give me some real humans?
These are real people. They're asking really real questions, and some of them, I got into kind of a conversation with one of them that I thought he was just being weird, but he was actually, telling the truth on something. And I got to have a conversation with him. It's kind of neat. Fruit. What am I even talking about? It's a fruit. But there are some other comments that I've gotten out there. It's like, oh, how do I answer this?
Like they stump you, or they're just questions that are
left field.
Gotcha.
Left field. So I think during our production meetings, maybe we can sit down and answer the comments.
Some people are just trolling.
Great. Yeah.
I think so.
We got to discern that. So if you don't get an answer, it's probably because we think you're just trolling us.
But for the other ones, Cindy especially, I haven't responded to yours, but I love your comments.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks everybody for joining us. This is an episode of Manipulative People on... I said it right. Why are you laughing?
Yeah, you said it right.
Let's go, Manila.
Yeah. On how to deal with difficult people. There's going to be 2 more in this series. So look forward to them in the next episodes. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Peace out.
Do your gun thing. I really like that. Okay, there you go. Bye. All right.